The TEDx London talk performance was really interesting because it was at the venue was the Science Museum, and it was in the IMAX theatre, and the IMAX theatre is like a super ultra dead environment in terms of acoustics, like to the point that it felt so weird in there, because one thing, you just can't feel any kind of energy or reverb in my instrument sounded like muffled completely, and so did my ears. And there was also a few other musicians there, like a harpist, and she was like, we all seemed quite weirded out by it. So I knew, like, okay, well, this is interesting, but sonically it's going to sound amazing in there. It was the IMAX theatre. There's such of a dead space. And in terms of contrast, obviously, visually, everything sounds good. And sonically, it's just whatever people are just listening, hearing whatever's coming out of the speakers and nothing else. So I had, taken a small setup. I had my tabla going through a Schweppes microphone, Omni microphone, and then I had my laptop running Logic and Ableton Live, going through the Lyra. And soon as we plugged the stuff in, like the soundtrack, it was just like, okay, this is really interesting, because sonically, this is such of a dead space, so you could really hear the converter, and everybody just really enjoyed the kind of what they were hearing, and they were like, yeah, what was going on? I said, nothing much. I knew that is the translation of whatever I'm working on musically, in the computer, and how it's being translated in the system, in speakers. So for live, I always need like a converter, because my live setup's usually, if it's a solo setup, it's pretty much usually my Indian drums, sometimes some vocals, sometimes some harp, auto harps, or anything on that particular occasion. I would want, maybe going for a looper, but I've always got pretty much my laptop and live electronics going through a converter, and I've used various converters live. But there's something when you use the Lyra, it's just like you hear all the definition of the music is just so well contained, and so that's something which is definitely going to be glued in the suitcase. The first TED event I participated was in 2003 in Oxford, and we had performed. I had a band called TabTech, which we also recorded some material which is going to be released soon. And so the TabTech project, we performed in a church in Oxford for TED, but I never talked, I never got to speak. So it was fantastic. It was challenging to have a compressed kind of time frame to kind of talk about whatever one wanted to talk about. And I there was many things which I wanted to speak about. I could have easily spoken about the scientific aspect of the tabla as an instrument, because it's very, very unique in terms of its scientific architectural nature as an instrument, and how that had happened, and possibly who had invented this. Nobody really knows, but that's when it gets even more interesting. Not just the mysticism of it, but the folklore of stories which get passed down, or which are kind of around the grapevine of the music kind of fraternity. I ended up talking about London and me as as a London. What we spoke about earlier, you know, about these early multi-track recordings of press play, accompany, press record, press play, accompany, press record, you know, so it was early kind of like multi-tracking really. And they, you know, it was a London thing. For me, it's a London thing, and everyone really felt quite close to it because they have their own kind of, I suppose, their own stories to tell in terms of making things work for yourself. You know, necessity becomes the mother of creation, and for me, it was really important to also reinforce the idea of cross-cultural musical exchange. You know, because music is one language which it's universal language, and it's something which we can, you know, which we can use much more stronger to possibly bring more peace into the world, as opposed to pieces in the world, which we're finding today, politically and culturally. And I think music is a gift which we're given, and that's why most spiritual houses you go to, whether it's church or the Sikh temple, the Hindu temple, or a dargah, you know, you would see music. Music is an integral part of that, and there's a reason for that, and that reason is because it's a universal language. It's something which we can all forget where we're coming from, and if we do know where we're coming from or have an idea, we can bring that towards, you know, something and share that with someone who feels where they're coming from is a complete different place. But we can come together and we can make something, you know, which is beautiful and beyond, you know, beyond political borderlines and cultural borderlines. And I think it's a huge gift we have today. And, you know, so wherever you're coming from in terms of like music, you know, from, you know, luthiers making guitars and sitars and instruments, to people like Dave Smith making analog synthesizers, to, you know, Bob Moog making synthesizers, to Prism Sound. You know, this is a very, it's a beautiful gift we have, and it makes me very, very happy and proud when I feel that I have that kind of support to do what I think I do very, very well. Because today, I think as music writers, you know, we don't have that support from record companies anymore. So, you know, who are the kind of, if there are any kind of patrons in this world of, you know, the music industry, then, you know, it makes me very happy and proud when companies like Prism Sound actually, you know, give that support, that at least that technical support to an artist like myself, because then I can go and make those records. You know, without that, I will probably struggle to meet my production line where I feel that, right, I'm really happy with the sound of this. This is really, really good. Because I don't have those budgets anymore, which I had back in the days from, let's say, you know, a record company. You know, we don't have that anymore, so we need that support. And I think, you know, in the UK, we do have a great industry, and we're all, you know, good, reasonable taxpayers. And I think the government should also start recognizing that this is an industry which needs support on so many different levels. And it is a cottage industry. It's never going to turn into a big corporation. And if it does, it's not going to succeed.